What if I... That's awkward. I'll be right back. What if I told you that the sequel to one of the most complex and rewarding games of our generation isn't just an upgrade, but a reimagining of the entire genre? Path of Exile 2 isn't just a game, it's a revolution. My name is Limbo, and welcome to my review of Path of Exile 2.
Yeah, no, he hurt.
Oh, that's why.
Wow. Funny thing is, it turns out that they would like outrange and it would count as them dying. So like, Loyal might not have even.
Oh, what the dude? What the is this?
With 2-player HP.
No God.
Before we jump into the video, I just want to give a very quick disclaimer. I don't actively follow anyone else's take on this game, and I rarely go out of my way to look up information about this game. For me, the game exists in its own little bubble, completely separate from social media and the broader discourse around it. Everything that I'll be sharing is based off of my personal experience with the game. My perspective is entirely subjective, so some of my thoughts might not align with yours. You might even feel like some of what I'm saying is completely off mark, and that is completely okay. If you're someone who prefers reviews steeped in very, very deep community knowledge, or doesn't really value a fresh perspective on the game, this video might not be for you. I'm honestly just trying to be blunt and save you a little bit of time here. And now, with that out of the way, let's dive right in. To give you a little bit of a background, I'm not completely new to ARPGs. I've played Diablo 1 through 4 and I've enjoyed Torchlight 1 and 2. On top of that, I've spent a fair amount of time obsessing over Escape from Tarkov and anything from software. So believe me when I say I don't really shy away from challenging games. The dark and gritty vibe of Path of Exile has always intrigued me, but I'll be honest, Path of Exile 2 wasn't even close to being on my radar. I'd heard about it in passing through friends and a few streamers that I watched, but I wasn't really counting the days down to the release. You know, it wasn't really something that was marked on my calendar. And the main reason behind that is the point and click gameplay. I'll be honest, I didn't want to go through another Diablo 4 situation, and I really just didn't want to deal with the pain that came with something like carpal tunnel. Your hand really hurts after a while of like just clicking around. So when I heard that Path of Exile 2 was going to have a WASD movement, that was just something that I couldn't really pass up. It completely reeled me in, and it was just such a small adjustment, and it really made a really, really huge difference. Seriously, so good. The gameplay in Path of Exile 2 is some of the most addicting gameplay that I've ever experienced in my life. Seriously, it's really just that good. Let's start off with the classes and break down what's currently playable. Just a heads up, every single class has the potential for some absolutely broken and wild builds in this game. Me personally, that says a lot about the game's design. The fact that you can pick a random class and create something viable is just a testament to how deep the game actually is. Of course, there's always going to be the exceptions. Some classes like Rangers, Deadeye are notoriously overpowered and likely will remain that way. But in general, every class feels viable. Some classes like Warrior might start off slower, but will eventually grow into something truly worthwhile.
Really?
To help you visualize this, I'll show you some gameplay footage of each class and describe them. Sorceress is an intelligence-based class specializing in massive element AoE spells for clearing mobs. Warrior is strength-based and designed around close quarters combat with high survivability. Ranger is a dexterity-based class focused on ranged combat, mobility, and powerful single-target shots. Witch is intelligence-based, relying on minions for both offense and defense. Mercenary is a dexterity-based ranged class that uses a variety of ammo types and grenades. Monks are a class hybrid with intelligence and dexterity, blending melee combat with elemental magic like lightning, wind, and ice. Now, we're getting into the fun part. I need you to brace yourself for the Path of Exile 2 skill tree. It is very intimidating at first glance, but honestly, it's really not as bad as it seems. There's a handy search bar that lets you quickly find what you're looking for, which makes navigating it a much easier task. But that being said, the complexity of the skill tree is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it offers countless possibilities, allowing you to build a truly unique class. And on the other hand, it can feel very overwhelming, especially if you're new. If you're like me and you're not so much a numbers person, you can always just follow a guide to make things a lot smoother. For my first class, I built a freeze monk. It was going really well, and I was actually making my own decisions going down the skill tree, and then I hit Act 2. And that's when I started to encounter some serious difficulty spikes in the monsters. After struggling through fights and spending way too long on bosses, I decided to switch things up. I literally started a new mercenary class and I followed a build guide this time. Now, when I say this, I'm not exaggerating in the slightest. The difference was literally night and day. I went from spending 10 minutes struggling against bosses to literally deleting them in seconds. For newer players, this is a common trap. Your first build might not work out, and if that happens, don't get discouraged. You can always just respec your character with this NPC here. He will reset your stats for a very small cost. And experimentation is a huge part of what makes this game really fun. So don't be afraid. Each class in Path of Exile 2 also has 2 ascendancies. Think of them like class upgrades. If you've ever played an MMO before, or played games like Ragnarok Online, Tree of Savior, or MapleStory, it's very, very similar to those systems. Ascending takes your class to the next level, like turning a mercenary into a gembling mercenary. Once you ascend, you'll start earning points for your Atlas tree, but you'll need to complete 3 more trials to unlock the rest of the points. Normally, people will refer to these as first, second, third, and fourth ascendancies. Skills also work a little differently in Path of Exile 2. Instead of leveling up and assigning points to unlock abilities, you use the gem system, and here's how it works. There are 3 different kinds of gems in the game. Skill gems, these are your active abilities that you'll be using. Spirit gems, these provide buffs, auras, or summon permanent minions. And the last but ultimately not least, support gems. These enhance your skill gems. You start with 2 slots for your support gems, but eventually can expand them to 4. Now, once you refine the gems that you want, it appears in your inventory and you can slot them into your skill section. The skill system is incredibly flexible and it allows you to swap out things incredibly easily instead of having to run to an NPC to respec. It's honestly one of my favorite features in the game. The trials, while an essential part of progression, feel a little bit overtuned. Depending on your build, they're either way too easy or they're frustratingly hard. Honestly, it's probably why you're starting to see the carry system really pop off in this game. It's a really big issue that grinding gear games will have to address, and I'm really curious to see how they actually handle it. But closing this section out, I do just kind of want to reiterate that Path of Exile 2 is all about experimentation, so don't get discouraged. It's kind of what makes the game so special and so good is experimentation. Before we dive deeper, I need to take a moment to talk about the boss design in Path of Exile 2. Compared to other games in the same genre, they are simply unmatched. In fact, the only other series that even comes close in terms of memorable and engaging bosses is the Soul series. To give you an idea, let's draw a quick comparison to Diablo 4, which released in June of last year. Every boss in Path of Exile 2 feels completely unique with fresh mechanics to keep you on your toes. They're challenging without overstaying their welcome, and each encounter feels crafted with love for the genre. And Diablo 4's bosses, especially its nightmare dungeons, feel very repetitive and completely uninspired. When you stack the map system and Path of Exile 2 against Diablo 4's dungeon design, there's simply no contest. It's almost a death sentence for Diablo 4. And to be fair, the numbers don't lie. Literally just look at the Steam charts. Despite being fully released and even putting out their first expansion, Diablo 4 has had a massive drop in player engagement. Meanwhile, Path of Exile 2, still in early access, is holding a steady over 300,000 players daily. It's an incredible achievement and a testament to Grinding Gear's dedication. I can't even overstate how impressive the bosses are in this game. They are one of the biggest draws for playing this game. Each one is beautifully designed, and the effort makes every encounter feel unique and very intentional. So thank you GGG for creating bosses that are not only challenging to the players, but also keep us coming back for even more, even if some of them leave us ready to throw a temper tantrum after being repeatedly stomped over and over again. Let's talk about looting and crafting in Path of Exile 2. At its core, this game is essentially a looting simulator. There's an overwhelming amount of currencies and items you'll encounter, so let me break this down for you real quick. Starting from the beginning, we've got loot rarity. White is the most basic item that you'll find and is often used for crafting. Blue is magic, which has 2 modifiers. Yellow is rare, and you can exalt these, which we'll get into later. And red is unique, special powerful items with predefined stats and abilities. I'm not going to go too deep here, this is just a general overview to give you an idea of the loot system in this game. Moving on to gear slots in Path of Exile 2, they are pretty similar to any other ARPG out there. You've got helmet, torso, gloves, boots, weapons, belts, amulets, and 2 ring slots. These 10 slots are the foundation of your character's power, and you'll be grinding for better gear as you level up, typically swapping pieces every 10 to 20 levels. You can acquire gear in 3 different ways: trading using the game's trade website, killing monsters, farming loot directly in the game, or your friends getting help from someone who is more experienced. Finding the right gear can also be kind of tricky. You'll have to be looking for stats that complement your build. For example, I'm currently playing Shockburst Mercenary, so I prioritize gear with high rolls on element resistance, magic find, life, and shock damage. But we'll dive deeper into the gear optimization in the endgame section. Here's where things get a little bit complicated for Path of Exile 2. It has a bunch of different currencies, and the values of them are currently fluctuating and changing depending on the in-game market. You can check out these currencies by visiting Alva, an NPC that you'll be unlocking in Act 3. She's right here. These are the main currencies that you'll be wanting to look out for, starting from the top and going down to the bottom in order. Divine Orbs, Exalted Orbs, Chaos Orbs, Regal Orbs, and Val Orbs. Good rule of thumb, just pick up all the currencies and stash them until you know what to do with them. Crafting in Path of Exile 2 is just as intricate as the rest of the game, and here's a basic rundown of what to expect. You'll be starting with these items, and this is going to be your bread and butter for crafting for the entire game pretty much. Orb of Transmutation upgrades a normal white item to a magic item, which is blue. Orb of Augmentation adds a new modifier to a magic item. And Regal Orbs upgrade magic items to rare, increasing their potential modifiers. Once you've regaled an item, you can also exalt them to put 3 additional modifiers onto that item as well. But this is kind of risky, so, be careful. These are pretty much just the basics, but there is advanced crafting using items like Val Orbs, Chaos Orbs, and crafting benches to manipulate modifiers. However, crafting is very overwhelming, and I would need to create a very deep guide for this, and right now is really not the time. And if you're wondering what modifiers are very valuable, here's a quick cheat sheet on ones that you should potentially keep. Elemental resistances, life, mana, magic find, and very high stat rolls. For example, I recently crafted a prismatic ring. While the strength and life rolls weren't the best, it had a high tri-res roll, which made it very valuable in the market. For context, a big life roll is anything above 180, high stats are 30 and above, and good resistances are usually 40 or higher. But 30 can also work, so it's up to you. Looting and crafting in Path of Exile 2 can feel very overwhelming at first, but it's one of the game's most rewarding systems. Whether you're grinding for gear, trading with others, or crafting your own items, the possibilities are nearly endless, and the key is patience and experimentation. don't be afraid to learn as you go. Yes, Path of Exile 2 has multiplayer, and honestly, it's a great experience, but there are a few caveats to keep in mind. Since launch, I've been playing with a couple of friends who are more familiar with the game than I am, and I've noticed a few things. First off, when a friend joins your instance, the difficulty ramps up significantly. Monsters gain more health and deal more damage based off the number of players you have in your instance. This increased difficulty remains until you either clear the instance or everyone dies, so if you're inviting friends to join you, be prepared to make a boss fight very, very hard, depending on who's in your party. Another downside is performance. This game gets a little laggy in the endgame, especially if you're playing with party members who use minion-based builds like witches or lightning-based skills. Lightning effects in particular are notorious for crashing weaker PCs, so make sure your system can handle the load. And that's about it for multiplayer. It's pretty much what you expect from an ARPG, so let's shift gears and talk about trading in the market before diving into the endgame. Trading in Path of Exile 2 is a little convoluted compared to other games. There's no auction house and the items aren't soulbound to your character. In my opinion, this is one of the best systems that they could have possibly implemented. That being said though, it's not perfect. Trading requires you to open up a separate browser because it's done through the official Path of Exile website, and just make sure you're on the right version of the game. I'll include a quick example in the background to show you exactly how it works, but here are the basics for it. You go to the trade website and use the filters for the item that you want to find. Once you've found that item, message the seller in-game using this simple button. Wait for their response. If they're available, they'll invite you to their party. Use the small blue portal under their name to teleport to the location and complete the trade. But there are a couple downsides to this. Some sellers might be AFK or busy, so it's best to message several people at once to improve your chances of getting a response. And honestly, it can be kind of frustrating at first, but you'll eventually get the hang of it after a couple of trades. If you want to sell items in this game, it kind of works the same as like every other ARPG or MMO. You buy a premium stash tab from the Path of Exile 2 shop, and if you've already bought into early access, you should already have some currency to spend on this. It's very simple. You literally just go to the shop and buy the premium stash tab. Once that's done, go to your stash and set the premium stash tab to public. Just like every other game, you pull up your inventory and you put the item into your selling stash tab that you want to use. And inside of that tab, you have 3 different options for selling. You've got negotiable, individually priced, or a blanket tab, which sells everything for the same price. It's completely up to you which one you want to choose. And if you want to remove an item, just drag it back in the inventory. If you're planning on playing this game seriously, I highly recommend picking up either an item filter or a price checking tool. Without these, it's very easy to overlook valuable items and waste your time sorting through junk. I'll link the item filter and the price checker I personally use in the description. Trust me, they'll save you a ton of time and frustration. This is kind of where things start to get really grindy, but also probably the most fun in the game for me personally. There's something about hearing those rare drop sounds that really get me going. Once you've gone through the campaign a second time, you'll be teleported to the endgame, which looks a little something like this. Instead of having the hooded figure, you'll now have Doriani, and he'll be your main trader from now on. They'll offer Waystones as well as identifying your unknown items for you. You can also refund your Atlas points and your skill points as well. You'll also unlock your hideout, which is going to be your main thing you'll be using from now on. You can access your hideout by typing in your chat /hideout at all times. The nice thing about the hideout is that you're able to move things around in any way you want, and you can unlock other versions of the hideout through specific tile sets in your map device. Now, when I say Waystones, what exactly do I mean? They're a specific item that drops from monsters when you hit the endgame. This item can be modified just like any other item in the game. You can augment them, wriggle them, and even vol them if you're feeling ballsy. Once you picked what waystone you want to use, you go over to the map device, which is the thing right here, and you figure out which direction you'd like to go on the map. Everybody starts off in the same section, but the tile sets are completely randomly generated with modifiers. To keep this really simple, circles that are blue mean that you can travel to them and do a map, and circles that are green are ones that you've already completed. And circles that are gray means that you literally cannot travel to them until you've done the node before them. You see that dotted line? That's what connects them basically. Waystones work a little bit differently compared to how the rest of the game works. Depending on your tile set, you've either got to kill every single rare on the map, or you've got to kill every single rare on the map, including the boss to complete the map. There are also a couple other ones like unlocking hideouts that require you to kill every single thing on the map. literally every single monster. And before I get too lost explaining the endgame, Waystones have 15 different tiers, 1 being the easiest and 15 being the hardest. Yes, technically there is a tier 16 that you can put into your map device, but you've got to corrupt a tier 15 with a Val Orb in order to do it, but the game doesn't require you to, it's just better loot and harder enemies. Once you've reached a certain level in this game, deaths start to become a little bit more dangerous. Instead of keeping your experience on death, you'll now start to lose 15% every single death, and if you die while you're doing maps solo, you will lose the map completely in the modifiers that are on that tile set. You'd think that it really wouldn't be that huge of a deal, but honestly it's probably one of the worst things that I've experienced in this game, and when you start to lose Waystones yourself, you'll definitely understand what I mean by that. That's pretty much endgame in a nutshell. You've also got towers that you can put tablets into that'll give your tile sets different things like breaches, delirium, expeditions, rituals, irradiated, and demon spawns, but I'm going to leave that to you to explore for yourself. Half of the fun in this game is finding out things on your own. Like my first breach, I was blown away by the amount of loot that I was getting. Like shit was wild, and I was so happy because I was getting so much experience from it too. You have to experience the breach for yourself. It's crazy. And here are just a couple of tips before we move on to the next section that I figured out either from friends or people that I watch playing this game. Hitting Z will make the loot disappear, so if you're struggling to move around and hit enemies because you're clicking on loot, this is very, very useful, specifically during breaches and delirium. Keep your gold until the end of the day so that you can either gamble at Alva or you can literally just respec your character as needed. Buy a quad premium stash tab for selling. It's a lot bigger than the regular ones you have for your stash tabs. If you're stuck doing your ascendancy, there's a Discord specifically for getting carries to help you out with it. Dump and then sort your stash later. Wasted time is a really big thing in this game. Check your traders every single level. They refresh their stock every time you level and you really don't know what you're going to find. Upgrade your skills with higher skill gems. I can't even tell you how much DPS you're going to be missing out on if you don't. Disable gameplay event voices. Shit is so annoying and it gets old really quickly hearing the same thing if you've been mapping for a hot minute. Turn off screen shake. Believe me, you're gonna get fucking nauseous if you keep that on. It's really, really atrocious in this game. It's bad. And finally, the last tip that I have for you is don't be afraid to experiment in this game. I don't really have a lot of gripes when it comes to this game. I think that a lot of the gripes that I have already been baked into PoE 1. So maybe it's just the fact that I haven't really been like numbed out to the idea of some of these, like on death and all those fun things, right? But I'm going to go through a couple of them that kind of really stick out to me and I just want to talk about. So talking about on death effects, I've been stuck at level 92 for the past week, I'd say. Every time I get up to about 50 or 60%, I get killed by an on death. Instant goodbye, who knows what. Even though I froze them with my build, I still die. So on deaths are pretty frustrating, especially when you've built up a massive reservoir of experience and you're just getting killed over and over again by stupid things that you can't see on the ground. It's not entirely fun to me. I know it's definitely baked into PoE 1, from what I've been told at least. So maybe I just need to deal with it and grow up, It is what it is. Certain tile sets in this game are beyond annoying, and I really do mean that. Anything with poison, anything with tight corridors such as Crypt, Val Factory, Seepage, Mire, anything of that sort is fucking annoying. I don't like them very much. Maybe you're an outlier and you enjoy them, but personally, I don't like them. That's just my opinion, though. I'm sure there's someone out there that enjoys Mire or Val Factory. I don't know why you would, but Also, you see these little shits right here, the frozen shades? I swear to God, if I get killed by one of these things once more, or frozen in a pack of enemies, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. I swear to God. The crashing in this game is also pretty irritating, and it's very egregious when you are opening up a breach, and then you literally crash the moment that you open the breach. Like, you don't even get to really do the breach, and then you crash, and then you're loading up, and then all of a sudden, as soon as you get into the portal, you're jumped by a bunch of monsters because you opened up the breach. I don't know, it's kind of annoying. I know that they addressed it on the last podcast that they did with Darth microtransactions, so a lot of people are having an issue after an hour of the game. I'm pretty sure it's the memory leak that's going on in the game. I could be wrong about that, but it is what it is. I'm sure they're going to be addressing it because it is early access after all. Also, the price fixing on the market and the people that are abusing instances, I've got literally one thing to say to you. Fuck you. The campaign in this game is simply amazing. It's really, really good, but I feel like it's kind of backwards for the most part. I feel like you should be running through the first bit of the campaign, the first 1, 2, and 3 acts, completely fine, and then your second go around through 1, 2, and 3 again should be harder. Like it's literally the difficulty name. Like I don't know what the actual difficulty name of it is, but it's supposed to be harder. So, but it feels like when you go through the second time, it feels like you just blast through everything. Like you already know where everything is. The bosses aren't like challenging in any way, shape, or form. It's just easier, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if they're gonna fix that in the future, but I feel like if you've beat the game and you're going through basically New Game Plus, it should be harder. I understand that some builds are ramping, and that's the reason why things are a lot easier the second go around, but at the same time, it's a harder difficulty. Why isn't it harder, you know? But despite the small list of gripes that I have with this game, I really, really enjoy it, and I think I'm in it for the long haul. Some say that I've been PoE pilled, and I think that sounds about right. I think I've found my new Escape from Tarkov. By the way, I played Escape from Tarkov and I dropped 8,000 hours in the game. So is this going to be another instance where I drop 8,000 hours into PoE 2? Who knows? I hope, because the game is really awesome, and I hope that I just don't get bored of it. There's a lot to do in the game, and I just really, really like grinding, I guess. If you guys haven't had the chance to play PoE or try it out, I would highly recommend it. I know that there's an entry fee right now, and if you want to wait around for the free-to-play, that's cool. Just give it a chance, because it definitely 100% deserves it. It's such a good game, and I feel like it's kind of underrated, even though it's breaking like 500k on Steam charts. It's absolutely insane. But if you guys found this video helpful in any way, shape, or form, make sure you guys hit me with a like, comment, or simply just subscribe. I promise it won't cost you a single exalt, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.